Video.
We're going to run the video.
Roll
We're going to
VT.
run a video.
5 years. 5 years, guys.
Right, I know. Right, let's. Oh, I've lost my window. Where's my window gone?
Lordy.
Yeah, this is usually where we have a little dance.
No,
can
we'll
juggle.
be fine. Share.
Oh,
And
wow.
then, you ready for this?
Do it.
Optimize for sound.
Let's go. It's all
Go.
optimized. Well, it should be.
JC, mate, what are you doing?
I'm sunbathing on a van. It's a bare naked chassis.
Ugh, I know this, but we are here for a very important reason.
What's that?
Behind you,
CPD.
we're going to be putting some bodies on these. Cathal, tell me, when did you start this business?
I started it in May 2009, just after the crash, really. So pretty difficult time, but I went off and tried it. So here we are.
I bet at that time, with all those challenges, you had to do just about everything, didn't you?
Just about, yeah. So I had a point to prove at the time. So from parking vehicles up to doing my own media, to doing the invoices, to you name it, I did it. At least I don't have to do that now, so I'm pretty happy about that.
And here you still are. How many vehicles are you delivering now?
On average, we're probably doing about 3,000 to 3,500 conversions a year.
Fantastic. And what is the biggest challenge today?
Probably the move towards sustainability and electrification and getting people to just get on board with it and realise how important it is, really.
Dave, you run this ship to within an inch of its life.
Our site is run to the second. Line concept is a core critical process within this business. So that includes the team knowing exactly what they're doing in each bay, having the right components near to them so they don't have to walk to the other side of the workshop or yard. We can measure and monitor that all the way through, so the quality and consistency of the product is there in any product line that we choose to build.
Dave, you've dragged me in the back of a van. Now there is a good reason for it. Tell me what that reason is.
CPD are doing van conversions, put it plain and simple. So we're catering for the utility sector. We can build a workshop in here, we can have various options of racking and line outs for it. And in the electric products as well, they come with some additional power sockets. So for a workshop van, that's great. The kit's already here for the end user and the customer.
Tom, we spoke to Cathal earlier and we asked him, what are the challenges in this industry? And he said two things.
Sure.
Sustainability and the transition to EV. And they're kind of linked. How are you preparing for that future?
So absolutely crucially, in terms of sustainability, you are stood on what will be our new van EV conversion workspace.
Wow.
The concept around the 6,000 square foot space is solar panels on the roof,
Yep.
battery electric storage, no draw from grid. Everything that we do will be self-powered, self-sustained, stored, including the charging of the electric vehicles as they come off the line as well.
Dave, we've been to the middle bit, which is where all the magic happens, but here, this is where the journey starts.
Correct, this is the start. So this is called CPD1. So this is our main destination drop-off site for all of our OEMs. We store or can store on this site around about 1,400 vehicles at a time, chassis or vans.
You then take this from here, go to the middle bit,
Correct.
make it the way they want it, and then it goes on to a third bit.
To the end, CPD3.
Let's do that bit then.
Tom, the final destination for all of your products.
Yes, stage 3. So this is where each of our roughly 3,000 conversions a year come here. There's a final kind of resting post before collection. We obviously have gone through that process you've seen today in terms of build quality, and now we're ready for that, going to delivery to customer, vehicle out to them, there for the aftercare perspective and hopefully next inquiry.
So it would be fair to say then that CPD have got us whether we want to stick with our diesel or move to electric. They seem to have got it nailed.
Whatever you drive, CPD will work with you to find the right solution to go on the back of your van. Outstanding. What are you doing?
Playing with vans?
Paul, look, we're done. That's it. We've had a good day, but I need to take you home, dear. In you go. Go on. There's a good love. That's it. Goodbye. See ya. Thank goodness. Peace and quiet at last.
John!
John. Was that a one-take wonder, or are you boiling in there going, hurry up, get it done?
Oh gosh, it was. I wasn't locked in for too long. But look, guys, I mean, the reality is that video is just a snip. There was so much more good stuff, and we've edited it down to like a real snapshot there. But the full version will be available on YouTube later. Follow us on YouTube. and you know, you'll see the longer form videos there, and you can expect more reviews and things in the coming months as we get and do more of that kind of thing, because it was a really exciting day, especially for me.
Yeah, no, love CPD. They were absolutely awesome, and thanks to everybody. Tom's here in the house. If you've got any questions about CPD and the conversions of vans, hit Tom up in the chat, and I'm sure he'll answer your questions. They are a mine of information. Now then, we got a fantastic hour ahead, packed with insights, a bit of banter, and some truly forward-thinking ideas, all centered around a theme that's close to every fleet manager's heart right now: innovation. We can't be here, though, without our partners. So thank you so much to the AA Europe Car Web Fleet and Iveco for their ongoing commitment and support. But let's be honest, the world of fleet management is evolving faster than a fully charged EV on a downhill slope with Paul at the wheel. And from electrifying vans to tackling the mammoth task of HGV charging and ensuring that every step of the journey is seamless for your teams. It's a dynamic, exciting, and sometimes head-scratching landscape. And that's why we're here, to cut through the noise, inspire new thinking, have a bit of fun while we're at it. Because innovation is where it's at. And hopefully today, somebody in the audience is going to have an aha moment where they think, do you know what? That innovation is for me, because all the creativity in the world is no use unless you go and do something with it. And so to help us navigate through some really fascinating stuff, we got Trevor Palmer of EV Blocks, Gunnlauga Erlendsson from Enso, and finally Chris Hazel of Felton. Now, did you know that Felton is Welsh for lightning? Oh, yes. You all know. And we found this out on a podcast, and Paul, we do a podcast or two, don't we?
We do a podcast or two. We've been doing a podcast or two every week for the last 2 years. So we have around, well, over 100, 120, 130 amazing folk that share their personal stories, their business stories, their insights and innovation. I mean, we really get to know the people of our industry, and it is a big privilege.
Don't forget, if you've got questions, because we've got these great speakers and we're going to dive in and ask the EV Cafe chaps some stuff in a minute. If you've got questions, put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and then they'll be picked up by Paul and or Sarah, and we can pose those questions at the end of the session, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, I'm going to kick us off with a question for each of the EV Cafe panelists. And Paul is the electric van guru, the one we can't shut up. Tell us, what's a hidden gem of innovation in electric van design or integration that you believe fleets aren't fully appreciating yet and should be?
Well, you did manage to shut me up because you put me in a box. But anyway, apart from that,
John,
John!
I wouldn't let him out.
The temptation was so huge.
I had to beg. But one of the, I mean, Dave touched on one of the ones that I think is really good, and I think we'll see more and more of this coming on, which was the ability to use the vehicle as a power source for your work that you might carry out at the back of the van. We saw the sort of plug version there, but we've even got up to things like EPTO, which basically will use the traction battery to potentially dig a huge hole at the back. You know, you can do all kinds of things. And I think the innovation really in the world of electric is that you can pretty much, as CPD demonstrated, do everything that you used to be able to do with your diesel van can now be done very simply in your electric vehicle. There are very, very few limitations these days. And I think that is the thing I want people to understand, is that innovation is way ahead of things. And, you know, we're going to hear from 3 people today that are talking around the ecosystem of innovation that supports the vehicles that are on the road, which is phenomenal. But the vehicles themselves are, I think, light years ahead of their diesel counterparts. And, you know, just the fact that all electric vans are automatic, we think that that's just, yeah, of course they are. Actually, most 98% of people are driving non-automatic diesel vehicles. So the actual fact that they're just automatic and smooth and seamless is also another we don't see it as an innovation, but it actually is. I think it is a transformational element of that vehicle's performance. So, two things: that automatic element, but also the ability to take power off the vehicle from the battery without actually polluting the atmosphere at the same time, which is what we do today, make a tremendous difference.
Absolutely do. Now, Sarah, one of the biggest changes that we need to make is in our mindset and how we view the electric vehicle. Have you seen innovative ways that fleets have cultivated a positive EV mindset among their drivers and staff, moving beyond just the training to fully embrace that shift to electric?
Great question. I was going to talk about Trevor Palmer's recent podcast episode where he described an innovation that, which is the EV blocks, because his client changed their mind halfway through delivering the job and they ended up having to drill through the concrete. So they didn't just think of better ways of doing things. And to me, that's what innovation is. So with the driver training element, and you're right, behavior change takes a long time. You can't just give someone a day's training and expect the driver to then want to embrace that vehicle instantly. It's about that kind of drip feeding, that regular support. And so I think it's something simple as touching base again later with somebody or going out with them again later to make sure that they didn't then pick up any sort of bad habits as you go. And I've got a personal example of this. I passed my motorcycle exam a couple of years ago and I try to go back every year to the same trainer to just check that I haven't picked up any horrible or bad or dangerous habits along the road. So that could be true of EV as well. Perhaps you're just not using the vehicle to its optimum performance levels, and data from people like Webfleet and Line1, they can help you to have a good look under the hood and see what's really happening there. Even gamification. I was part of a trial to see if who was going to be the top of the leaderboard. It was me, of course, who drove those vehicles most efficiently. You wouldn't believe it today. But when there's a prize or a table at stake, I'm there.
We heard from CPD. I'm sorry to bang on about it, but I was so impressed with them because they kept saying, we go back to the customer. We ask the customer what they need. We start to design the solution. We keep going back to the customer, test and learn, test and learn, test and learn, build better. And it is that constant communication process that makes the difference between a success or a kind of feeling of I didn't quite get there. Now then, Sam.
Yeah.
Talking to somebody who's going to get there, electric HGVs, they're an area which is newish to most logistics companies. Is there outside of the box thinking developing at the moment where people are already looking at innovation in the HGV, or is it just getting the job done right now?
That's a good question. I think it's a bit of both, John, because just listening to what John and Paul were saying as well. Sorry, Sass and Paul. Innovation for me.
Don't ever confuse me and Sarah. Ever.
Can you imagine?
Anyway, shut up. What was I gonna say? Yeah, innovation generally for me is a bit of a Marmite thing. I love and I hate it. In as much as it can be a risky exercise if innovation needs to manifest itself in commercial viability, and the investments need to go in the right places, and we need to make sure we're putting the money in the right places. So great ideas don't always manifest themselves into good business ideas, and so that's something we've all got to be cognizant of. In the EHGV world, I was just thinking while I was listening to everybody, I'm fortunate enough to be running £100 million government project at the moment in EHGVs, and every single time I've been to a Innovate UK, Innovate is in the title, interview, including actually one of our contributors today, one of our guests. I've been an advisor to them as well in their interviews. The key question in Innovate UK, funnily enough, is where's the innovation? And every single time that question, that's the key one to answer. And I remember going to the big interview for the one I'm running at the moment, and I answered the question before it came up, and there isn't any actually in our project. There's nothing technically innovative about anything we're doing. The clever bit is putting it all together and making something actually happen, and that's where the innovation is. So it's not always all about trying to find the next whiz-bang amazing thing that's going to revolutionize the world. It's taking all the component parts of things that we've already learned, putting it into a position whereby it can manifest itself in material change. And that in itself, for me, is also under the umbrella of innovation. And, we've got 150 trucks on the road now. I was up in not supposed to talk about it yet because I'm embargoed till tomorrow, but let's just say I was up in the Northeast yesterday, visiting something quite incredible, and it'll come out tomorrow in terms of what that's all about. But there's some amazing innovation in the ability to pull those things together that we're seeing in the market, and I'm so excited for the second half of this year as things really start to ramp up and material stuff on the road being used in anger. I'm in Hitachi offices in London at the moment, and I've just listened to all of our consortium members talk about all the stuff that they're doing, and I can't wait to share it with the wider public because it's quite incredible. So there is movement. It's early days, but trust me, it's coming like a freight train or a freight truck.
Don't go anywhere, Sam, because I'm going to come back to you in just a second. Trevor, if you could come on and put your camera on and your microphone on whilst he's doing that. Sam, it would be remiss of me not to mention the brilliant raise of funds that GridServe have managed to achieve again. You mentioned Hitachi. What's that going to be used for primarily?
It's can't say too much, but it's capital investment, right? And I've seen an article from Osprey again as well today, effectively showcasing the same level of investment. We need the capital expenditure in order to invest and continue to reinvest in the infrastructure needs to go in the ground. And evidently, the markets have got lots of appetite to support companies like GridServe and Osprey to help deliver that because we as an industry have done very well in building an awful lot of infrastructure very, very quickly, but it cannot stop because the trajectory of electrification means that we have to keep pushing harder and harder and harder. So it's really, really encouraging to see different charge point operators being able to raise that sort of finance in order to keep putting stuff in the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Now then, Trevor, we're going to have him join us in a second, but whilst he's doing that, Sam, do you want to do an introduction to the man himself, Trevor Palmer?
Very man himself. There we are. There's my icon. Right on cue. Next question is finding the introduction. There it is. Right. I'm on my laptop in a screen and I'm not used to all of the small windows. Right, Trevor Palmer, I think we all know who he is, but he is the visionary founder and inventor behind EV Blocks, a game-changing system of modular precast foundations that radically streamline EV charger installations by removing the weight for poured concrete to cure. So in other words, he is delivering really creative, innovative stuff that we will probably never see because it's hidden under the ground, but it is so very, very important. And GridServe is a proud recipient of his supplies. Fun fact, and I love this one, Trevor, and I cannot wait to hear more. It's a cracker. Of all the fun facts I've done over the years, this one does need some explanation. Are we ready? Before launching EV Blocks, Trevor snowboarded down a mountain blindfolded. Now, what the hell? What the hell was that about? So you, Trevor, you are here to talk about innovation. We're delighted to have you as always. I'm looking forward to hearing more, but you've got to start. What on earth were you doing?
So it's one of those kind of good ideas in the pub.
So that's not a good idea in the pub.
Not ever.
But we decided, right, let's have a go at this. So we got to the top of the mountain, put blindfold on. We're pretty good, fortunate to be pretty good snowboarders. There's 2 or 3 of us, and put blindfold on. One guy is kind of navigating for you whilst you feel your way down the mountain. It was like such a out of body experience because you rely on sight so much with skiing and snowboarding. Literally, you're crawling down on your heel edge down the mountain. You're like, this feels so fast. And then you see the guys recording on the camera, like, you're hardly moving. So we were doing about sort of like half a ski run at a time with the blindfold in, just trying to go do a couple of link turns and things like that. It was really, really tricky, but it was a good fun. So we're living in Canada for like 6 months, snowboarding every day.
Wow.
And this was one of the ideas. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
And when you live to tell the tale, which is great news. And Trev, it's great to have you back on some sort of 4, maybe nearly even 5 years after you first joined us way back when in COVID times, which many of us remember. And I know that led to some really good relationships way back when, and hence you're back here today. But over these 5 years, what has been the main challenges that fleets have been facing when it comes to supporting their electric vehicles? What is it that stands out?
I think there's still a lot of education to be done. for fleet owners and managers, and they're not always aware of what technologies are available to them. Equally, what grants are available to them as well. So that a lot of the installers are aware of infrastructure grants or charge point socket grants. I think us as an industry can do a better job of helping those fleet managers understand what benefits are available to them to move to electric, and then also planning that build out as their fleet grows.
Yeah, and how does, I mean, Sam sort of alluded to it already, really, but how do EV blocks and this innovative design really help that deployment of electric vehicles and I suppose charge points, really? But talk to us about how it actually works and what you do.
Sure. So I'm originally an electrician by trade. We're installing EV chargers at scale when I was running a contracting business, and I had electricians kind of staring at concrete curing effectively. And this is not a good use of time. It's not efficient. When you compare the amount of concrete in our foundations, our EV blocks, against pouring wet cast on site, obviously wet cast is completely solid, whereas the middle of an EV block is hollow. So you've got reduced amount of carbon or cement or concrete being deployed, and also precast is faster. It's ready to go straight away, and all of our products in their various iterations are universal in their own right. So kind of allows fleet owners to change that hardware without having to dig up that car park again.
And we obviously this seems to speed the process up. I mean, how important is this speed of delivery, do you think, to one, to the market as a whole, but also, you know, to individual operators and to the users themselves?
Looking at the amount of products that are going out the door every week, I think speed is becoming more of an issue. Reduced disruption on site because you'll be able to get in, done, and out again. Good for the contractor as well. Commercially, they can get their invoicing faster as well. So you can get more sites completed per year. That means more pins in the ground for us moving to electrification.
Fantastic. But I mean, I'm sure, you know, obviously you're working with GridServe. I know you've worked with others, but is it not limited a little bit in terms of, you know, you can only work with certain charge points or certain CPOs or anything like that? I mean, does it have its limitations or is it a universal thing?
Yeah, so all the products are designed to be universal. There's probably only a handful of chargers, and we're talking like 2 or 3 that are outside of our working range
Wow.
for EV Blocks products. And on those products, we've worked with either directly with the OEMs, engaging with them to produce a foundation specific for their EV charger. So a good example is the Kempower 1 megawatt. It's like a kind of big rectangular EV charger for your larger vehicles. We're doing a bespoke foundation for them. It just fits outside of anything that's universal from our products, but pretty much every other EV charger on the market will either fit onto EV Block Mini, the B600, which is the original universal product for AC
Yeah.
chargers, or our B800, which is our universal product for DC chargers. Which
Yeah,
that's the main one that CPOs are taking on, like GridServe.
yeah, and I love it because I mean it does allow for, you know, a fit almost anywhere because you can kind of just put it outside your house. It can be in a hotel. It allows you to deploy charging anywhere. I mean, it's brilliant innovation. Saz, have we got questions for Trev in the chat?
I've got a question.
John's got a question.
Let's
John.
say, Trevor, I want to put your preformed concrete blocks in the ground in my depot. How do I get hold of them?
So you can either purchase through the website, you can email us and say, I'd like to buy some EV blocks, and we will help you through that process. Or you can work with your local merchant, either builder's merchant or electrical wholesaler, and they will be delivered to your site on a pallet with a tail lift facility. So you don't need a forklift the other end. Everything comes by tail lift and delivered on a pallet. Really easy.
within 72 hours. And if you really want to push the boat out, you can do next day delivery before 12.
Wow, thank you. I know Sarah's got a hand up.
Has got a hand up.
I've listened to your episode of the EV Café podcast this morning, Trev. I hope you've also listened to it back. I urge everybody to. And in there, we ask a question which I think is really pertinent to your global expansion, taking your innovation worldwide. We asked you two things. One, do you truly believe that a standardization may come to ensure that every practice of installation, particularly for fleet, can be this seamless? And the second was, do you think that the world is as attuned as we are here in Europe to the importance of ESG, environmental and social governance?
I still think no on both. It's kind of that utopia where it would be nice, where we're not having to build bespoke designs and foundations for different chargers. Whether it would come is unlikely because you've got lots of different commercial interests. I think the rest of the world may catch up in terms of ESG, but I think you're on an uphill battle with places like China or India, where they're on a different wavelength to us, I think.
Absolutely right. Thank you. There is a question in the chat now. Thank you. So do EV blocks also have a design of pre-formed concrete blocks for ESS, which stands for energy storage systems? Maybe that's the big secret that Trev alluded to on the recording. Oh.
We can definitely look at that. It's something that has been requested by the client base. We have some products ready for the inverters from AC to DC for the like Kempower satellite units, and we are looking at a similar solution for DC battery storage.
Brilliant, good stuff. Well done, Trevor. Now, would I be right in thinking you just dig a hole, type 2 in the bottom,
yeah.
tamp it all down, chuck your concrete block in, square it off, and you're ready to go?
Correct, that's right.
So you can save maybe a day, couple of days?
Yeah, we have had a case study come back from the other side of the globe that actually talks about the savings involved in using EV block, and they're a big engineering firm, and they are saying they've worked out that it's a 15% saving deploying EV blocks against casting in situ. So we're going to do some work with the team in Australia to see if we can broaden that out and do a real press release about it. It's really interesting, the study and the breakdown that they've done on that.
Brilliant stuff, Trevor. Good stuff. Right, well, we're going to catch up with you in a little while. So thank you very much for that so far. If you just hang around, turn your camera off, microphone off, and we will come back to you in about 20 minutes or so with some more questions, because we are about to introduce the G. Oh, yes, it's Gunnlaugur Erlendsson. So let me just promote him to be a panelist. Sam, G's all yours.
Oh, my old friend G, who's at the most ridiculous banner coming up. Here we go. Yep, that's covered the entire screen. Hello, G, my old friend. Right. So John, twice now you said his name almost like it was nothing, and I'm going to try once and mess it up. Gunnlaugur Erlendsson. It's all right, isn't it? Anyway, G, let's go with that, is the founder, as we all know, and CEO of Enso. Enso's mission is to help make EVs more successful by using better EV tire technology that saves EV owners costs every mile. G is the founder and CEO, as I said, responsible for developing Enso's vision, building its team, and coordinating key partnerships with leading car makers and large fleets. This is another fun fact, which is a cracker. G owns and drives a London taxi as his personal car, running on Enso tires, of course, but he's not the light cabby, so can't use the bus lanes. That is a shame, because that would be quite useful in London. But yeah, G, I didn't know that. I did not know that you had your own. I assume it's an ABC taxi, and yeah, thank God for that. And Yeah, that's a pretty cool way of getting around. But how many times, I've got a question for you. How many times does someone stick their hand up and ask for you to pull over to give them a ride? It's got to happen, surely.
Every time I'm driving,
There you
it's
go.
it's like suddenly you got friends and everyone's waving at you and you wave back, you know, and you're like so popular. It's just great. It actually gives you a warm feeling in London. I mean, think about it. It's the only car that was ever built for London. So it can turn on a dime. It can fit 6 people in the back, plus 2 dogs and tons of luggage. So what's not to love? Well, the fact is, it's quite slow and you know, a few other things, but otherwise it's fantastic. The reason we have it is, of course, because we started selling our tires for the London Electric Taxi, and we're authorized on the by LEVC for their vehicle. And so when we needed to test our tires, we suggested, why don't we just buy a taxi, and you know, it's cheaper than to rent one. And so we ended up owning one of these things. Great to be here, guys.
Fantastic. Gee, listen, it's we had a great podcast, and everybody, Trevor's been on the podcast as well. G's been on the podcast, and Chris Hazel's been on the podcast. So if you want to hear more about all of the other people, then do listen. But G, it was a really exciting time to talk to you. But please explain to everybody, what on earth has tires got to do with electric vehicle innovation or related innovation? Because it doesn't make any difference, does it?
It makes a huge difference. Electric vehicles are 3 times more efficient than fossil fuel cars. That's fantastic. You use a lot less overall energy to move, but that means that they're much more sensitive, 3 times more sensitive to tire inefficiencies. So when we make a tire more efficient and give it to an electric car, they get 3 times more benefit. Or if you get a bad one, they could be impacted 3 times more in the worst category when you have a bad tire. So ultimately, when we make an ultra energy efficient tire, we're here to save you costs per mile, meaning you use less electrons, less electricity. That means that every mile you drive, you use just a little bit less kilowatts, and that combined saves a lot of costs. So when we roll this out to London taxi drivers, with Uber drivers, delivery vans, the total cost ownership kind of calculation means that there's a substantial cost saving to the fleets operating on Enzos rather than anything else. And that's basically where we focus on efficiency, but we also make them last longer because we want to reduce that air and microplast pollution that tires generate today as well. So we do both. We make a durable tire, a more efficient tire, and it's cheaper to buy.
G, I just want to pick up a comment in the comments box.
Go for
Brett
it.
Houghton.
Dare you,
Brett
John
Houghton.
Curtis? How
Brett
dare
Houghton
you?
from Iveco. I'll take the first bit. You take the second bit. Brett Houghton from Iveco, our partners, has asked a very interesting question that Sarah will now pose.
Yeah, go for it.
Gee, do I have to do Brett's voice? No, better not. Gee, any thoughts at looking at the LCV and HGV market?
Yes.
Postcard back to Iveco.
Absolutely, and we get asked that a lot, and it's definitely something we're looking at, because where we focus on, of course, is to supply the fleets, and increasingly fleets are moving to heavier and larger vehicles. So that's definitely in our remit. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Do you know Brett at all?
No, but this is great. I'm networking. It's fantastic.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, noted on it.
So,
Now,
G, let's come back to the tires themselves. Listen, what is the impact of the tires that you provide? Because you know it is actually making a material difference physically to the air quality in particularly in the towns and cities.
Yeah, I think you look at it from the bigger picture. Of course, you have an environmental impact from all tires, but what we've designed with Enzo is a business model that enhances the environmental impact. So ultimately, we sell directly to customers. That means we can cut out the middleman, and that makes our tires cheaper to buy. We then engineer them to last longer by extending the durability of a tire. You reduce the air and microplastic, the tire wear. And electric cars, you know, are heavy, have higher torque. They're like the heaviest sports car you will ever buy. And as a result, it goes through the tire. And at the moment, 2/3 of the maintenance, service, and repair bill of an electric vehicle fleet is just buying tires, according to the AFP. So when a fleet switches from fossil fuel to electric, you know, everyone talks about the benefit, but nobody talks about you're going to be buying a lot more tires than you did before. So ultimately, we're here to address that pain point. And ultimately, by doing an environmental focused product that is cheaper to buy, lasts longer, so you buy fewer, and saves you on the energy bill, the key question for us has always been, how do we reduce costs for the customers at every single level in their journey. And of course, we only get to sell the tire. You as a fleet get the rest of the benefits. And so when we, for example, launched with taxis, which we did 2 years ago, we calculated that a average taxi driver spends about 4,000 every single year just buying energy for that vehicle. And so by reducing that by, let's just say 10, 15%, it pays for the tires free. So just simply the higher energy saving reduces your costs. And then ultimately the way we work with fleets is really about then harvesting data. A lot of these fleets that we work with, delivery vans, we just expanded now with Uber and for the Uber drivers just recently. All of that is about harvesting data in the field that we can then go back to and say, okay, let's go back to the product and see how we can tune it even better for the real world application of what is actually happening on the roads. Because we're not designing tires here for the Nürburgring, although we may win that as well. We're designing here tires for the real world, for the school run and the delivery run and everything in between, because ultimately we've decided that cities, urban environments are going to be dominated by these vehicles, which we think is great because we want electric cars to be successful to combat climate change. We just need to think about that uncomfortable truth about tires, that they still wear down, they're still made out of fossil fuels, and they're still bloody expensive. So let's tackle that and then ultimately help make electric cars more successful.
Gee, I love this solution. A solution that is decarbonizing our towns and cities while lasting longer, costing less, and helping you go further. I just love it. We must have some questions for Jean, do we?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the actual official, yeah, there's always some knocking about in the official chat. Have you found one? We've got
the
Scotty talking
Q&A.
about-
There's plenty in the Q&A, I think.
I couldn't find any. Go ahead, if you can see it. Read it
Gee,
out.
I want to know if there was a vehicle that you could put your tires on, what would it be?
Oh, what we haven't done already?
Yeah.
Oh, so so I'm here in the US at the moment. I'm actually in North Carolina. And so great to see you from here. It's 7:00 in the morning. And
sorry about that.
So our expansion is very much focused on the US marketplace. So we're already now catering to the UK fleets, working with some of the larger ones there and expanding and tires available online across the UK. Now, of course, as we come to America, you realize that the park, the collection of vehicles is different here. And some of the vehicles here, for example, there's the Rivian van. We'd love to be on the Rivian van, so let's see what happens. Where we'd love to be on that, everything that is basically coming to the market here. But Americans like their big, heavy SUVs, and they like, different kind of vehicles. So it's interesting contrast, and I think we in the UK maybe forget this, that London and the UK is like this big test bed for every electric car on the planet. We have, the original European ones, we had the Teslas, we're now getting every Chinese flavor on top of that. And so we're a little bit spoiled for choice. And when we look at the vehicles here, the ones I want to cater to, I want to cater to the vehicles that are on the ground at scale, and ultimately the vehicles that drive the most, because it's the vehicles that drive the most that consume most of these products, where we can give the best benefit to them on cost benefit analysis. And so for me, I want to do the whole part that's focused on the US, which is surprisingly small because the collection of US EVs compared to Europeans, it's a narrower band of electric cars. I mean, it's a lot of Teslas and then a handful of additional vehicles. But it's interesting to see how the market is slightly different and how the vehicles are used differently, if that makes sense. So for me, I just want to do every car, including the BYDs, but ultimately we have to go where the market is today rather than where the market is going to be in 2 years' time, because the today is where the customers have the need today.
I'm just surprised Donald Trump let you in. Sarah's got some questions.
I do. I found them. I'm so sorry. I did a refresh and found them. We've got a couple seconds for you. Let's go. So Michael Barton says, gee, do the cost savings mean that your tires are essentially free? I mean,
almost. If you calculate almost for the customer, from the customer gets an energy saving and buys fewer tires. So ultimately, when you count that together, the total cost of ownership may come to the fact that the tires are free, and you get an operational benefit, of course.
I love that, and a moral one too. And Scott Odie has said twice, sorry that you had to call it twice, but I'd like to know why not pneumatic tyres though, question mark. So why not pneumatic tyres?
They are pneumatic, of course. These are inflated
Yeah.
tires. They flap around. They have a hole in the middle. We're not doing the non-pneumatic tires because,
yeah,
the ones with the springs inside, the stuff like that, the tweel, as it's called in layman's terms, can't hit a curb, has to drive slowly, is heavier, more complex, and I wouldn't want to drive it very fast without feeling incredibly unsafe. So
Good answer.
I think and on the Donald front, we're making electric vehicles great again by simply equipping them with greater tires.
Yes. Well done. That is cracking.
Mevga. We've created something new. Mevga. Make electric vehicles great again.
Mevga. You were here when it happened.
We got to get some hats made, G. Good work. Thank you, my friend. If you wouldn't mind hanging around, we've got some more questions for you at the end of the show. Bless you for that. Next up, we've got the man himself, Chris Hazel. He's a little bit nuts, but we like him. So I'm just promoting him. And Sam,
that
over
was
to you.
painful.
I know,
Tom.
I'm an old man. I do old man jokes.
All right, then. So Chris Hazel, who didn't provide me with an intro. So unfortunately, Chris, I'm doing it for you. Are you ready?
Oh, God.
Right, Chris Hazel is a passionate business leader in the electric vehicle industry. He has a proven record of successfully co-founding and managing Felton, which, as John has already said, is Welsh for lightning. It empowers automotive workshops and vehicle restorers across Europe, Australia, and North America to install systems built with OEM levels of performance, reliability, and support. Now, Trevor, you didn't, therefore, by not giving me your intro, you didn't provide.
Chris, maybe?
Chris, sorry, Chris.
I did actually send an intro,
Paul?
but it was only about half an hour ago.
That's not good enough.
Not good enough. I'll try harder next time. Anyway, I've got a fun fact. And the fun fact is, I looked you up on LinkedIn this morning, hence doing your intro, and noticed that your profile picture, which is the one that's still currently on my screen, is in fact in front of the EV Café logo. Nobody else probably noticed that, but I saw it and thought, there you go. That'll be the fun fact for this morning or this afternoon. But anyway, Chris, yes, thank you. Thank you for sending the intro. I didn't see it, so I made one up, but hopefully it was acceptable. And welcome to our show.
So I probably need to update my LinkedIn profile because the intro's, it's probably a bit outdated from the conversations we've been having more recently. So I'm here to actually talk about ChargeCube, which is a new product that's been developed at Felton from all the stuff we've done over the years in the retrofit EV space, where we were basically reverse engineering Teslas and loads of other OEM vehicles to build retrofit kits for classic vehicles. Now, over the years, we obviously did a lot of reverse engineering, and it's finally hit the point where there's enough second life batteries available for us to start building rapidly deployable charge infrastructure with batteries embedded at a really cost-effective price. So we can be cost-effective with China, use batteries that are within country, and actually build infrastructure with those, which I know, Paul, you have been and seen the ChargeCube, and you actually had it a couple of weeks ago at one of the shows you attended.
Yeah, company car in action. It was there charging some vehicles, getting them ready to go around the Millbrook circuit. Yeah, so it was very effective and very, I don't know, very good looking. It was very well designed, I thought.
So it's basically a 10-foot sea container that we can then put up to 450 kilowatt hours of second life batteries within. But within that container, we also have all the power electronics. So we have up to 240 kilowatt DC rapid charging built into the unit. And then we can also run 12 7-kilowatt chargers on these things I've called pavilions. Whether that's the right name for them or not, I don't know. But they're basically little sea containers that are on end that have 2 chargers built into them. And you then scatter them out throughout your yard, and they all plug back into the main ChargeCube. And so it's super quick to deploy, a couple of hours, it's fully set up in a yard for a fleet. And then you can feed in whatever grid you've got available. So the key thing here is that fleet operators aren't having to upgrade their grid connection in most situations, and they can feed in the grid they have available, battery buffers and charges over a 24-hour period. You can even put renewables into it, and then it's got enough power available to charge your fleet when you need it. But also, if you need to do rapid charging with your fleet, you've got up to 240 kilowatt charging speed, which most locations haven't got that much power available at any point in time, let alone over a 24-hour period. So the battery gives that massive buffer for us to basically rapidly deploy and charge our fleet. Key thing is you're not having to pay for upgrades to sites you don't own. You're not having to dig up floors and put in cable runs and stuff when you're going to be potentially exiting that site in 5 to 10 years. And then the key thing we're doing to enable people to get into this is looking at offering them on a 5-year lease. So when you lease your electric vehicles, you lease a charge cube to go alongside it. Then you can scale it as your fleet grows. Because some of the meetings we've been having recently is a lot of the fleets seem to think that they can wait till 2030, 2035 to suddenly change across to electric. And the fundamental thing is they cannot. They need to start changing now and slowly introducing the fleet to electric. Whereas I think what I've been learning is a lot of the board level or senior management at some of these companies seems to think that they can just swap their entire fleet over in a year. And it's not going to be possible. So we're trying to now remove the roadblocks for people, remove all the excuses for them not transitioning their fleet to electric, which is things like the charging infrastructure is definitely one of the blockers, the outlay for that infrastructure. So trying to do it over a lease period that's serviced and maintained. And then we can do some other really cool stuff with the software in the back end, like monitoring the vehicles, what their state of charges are, how much you're charging them to when they come in and plug in. Also monitoring the carbon. So we track the carbon of when the electric's bought and at how many grams of carbon per kilowatt hour at that point in time within the UK grid. And then basically we can calculate how much carbon you've saved or how much you've used. So potentially if you're a company that you really are worried about your carbon, and that's your main focus, it's not necessarily saving money, but it's actually how good are you at offsetting your carbon. You can basically select a box on the software to go, actually, I only want to buy my electric when it's below X amount of grams per kilowatt hour of carbon, and it purchases the electric at that point in time, providing you've got enough. Oh, she's changed her background. We have a charge cube. Magically appeared.
Smaller.
There we go.
I've got a question about that, Chris. Ian Thompson has asked in the questions here: can the 10-foot shipping container be upscaled to a 20-foot or 40-foot if you want to?
Yeah, we can. So we can do bigger versions of it. But what you tend to find is when you're on a site, you want to be able to distribute the power. In a lot of situations, say we've got 12 chargers plugged into it, we could run more, but then your cable runs get extremely long, and then you get voltage drop over your cable runs, so you lose efficiency. So for us, we're better off in those situations doing multiple small 10-foots and dropping them out throughout a yard rather than doing one big one. But yeah, we can do. We have done some designs for 20-foots that are about 1.2 megawatt of power for certain situations if we need to. But in a lot of places, having the smaller 10-foots quite nice because you can spread them out around the site. As you probably know, is most sites there's a mixture of parking in different areas, and it's trying to understand where is the optimum place for drivers to park. But one thing we have come across more recently is there seems to be a favoured chargers on site. They're not necessarily all used evenly. So that's the other thing is with the software going, actually your van's coming in, you must go to charger number 10. So trying to make them go to certain chargers to charge rather than just go to the closest one, which is a random thing you don't ever think about when you put charging infrastructure in. But you'll tend to find that even when someone's in a car, they'll inevitably go, what is the closest parking space with a charger to the building? So I don't have to walk as far, rather than going to the optimum charger that has the most energy storage available.
I always thought that was just me in the toilets choosing the place I would use.
You get directed to which cubicle has Sean used.
Cubicle number 2
in the Q&A.
You go to the shopping centre, you're like, I don't want to walk too far, so I'm going to park here. But you do it when you're going to charge as well, inevitably. So we've started learning that, and it's like, how do we get people to go to the charge cube where it's actually got loads of energy and not just the closest one?
Makes sense. Now, Sarah, shall we get Gunloga and Trevor back on, and then we can hit the Q&A?
Okay.
There are a couple says there's a Mythbusters episode about which toilet to use. No, we don't want to be going there. Trevor, you're back in as well. Sarah, Paul, Q&A box, do it.
Oh, can I pick one for Chris just whilst we're on his topic?
No, because I was already doing that, but I think I have a Welsh delay, which means nobody can hear me. But I was going to ask Chris Ramsey's question directly to Chris Hazel.
It wasn't.
If I may.
It was.
Right.
Go on then.
Okay,
yes,
let's do that. Sarah first.
I've got my very spiky lightning bolt full and I'm not afraid to use it. But Chris Ramsey asks Chris, Hazel, does ChargeCube have V2G, allowing the sites to also generate revenue whilst being leased by that site?
We have developed it. We haven't implemented it yet because we were finding massive pushback from DNOs. So in order to do V2G, you have to have a G99, which can take 3 to 6 months to process on a lot of these sites, and it can be a really painful process. So the current version we've done doesn't allow feedback to grid physically, because then we can deploy them without the DNO getting upset. And that allows really quick deployment and get them up and running. But yes, there's an option for that to do feeding back. And there's also something else that's coming out from the grid at the moment, which basically is potentially paying you to not take power. So not feed it back, but actually say the grid is struggling and we've got hundreds of charge cubes, we could basically stop all of them for, say, 10 minutes from drawing power from the grid, which then allows the grid to recover. So there's actually that as well, which is actually stopping your power take at a point in time, which I think is what Octopus and some of the other companies are now starting to look at. So they can basically control the electric coming into a house and just stop drawing and swap to batteries for a split period of time to allow grid to recover. So it's there. We haven't implemented it yet. It is definitely possible. But for now, we've been trying to focus on how quickly can these things be deployed and put in place, and then slowly work through all the different DNOs all over the country over a period of time to get them comfortable with the product and how it operates.
Cool. Can I go now, please? Can I go?
Go on.
So Jamie Fretwell from Verizon asks, how much does the ChargeCube weigh? Can it be delivered to a customer's site in the back of an electric van? I think I know that a 10-foot container won't fit in the back of a van, but anyway, it might fit on a platform cab. I'm not sure, as close, but it says on the back of an electric commercial vehicle. Well, I guess back on any vehicle that it will fit. But Chris, tell us.
So the 10-foot charge cubes are about 3.5 ton up to about 6 ton, depending on the amount of batteries in them. So they're pretty heavy. And that's what we call charge cube cubed. But we also have charge cube squared, which no one's seen yet, but it does exist, and we've built prototypes. And that is a Euro pallet size cube. So that basically is 80 centimeters by 120 centimeters by 60 centimeters high, same size as a Euro pallet. And then it has a power module that drops on top. So that's 100 kilowatt hour battery at 800 volts. And you drop a power module on top. And then your power modules you can have CCS rapid charging, you can have AC charging, you can have smaller AC in, bigger AC out. And that's going to be more designed for exactly what's just been said. Go in the back of a van, go on a towable, be delivered to building sites, that sort of stuff. So that's like a ruggedized unit that we've been building. We haven't released it yet, but hopefully probably in the next couple of months, we'll publicly release that. We've just been trying to not bite off more than we can chew, shall we say, and trying to stagger some of this stuff. But if there's interest in the smaller one, it does exist, and we can talk to people about it, and we can build them. We're just trying to gently release it into the market.
Thank you, Chris. Next question.
I've got a question for Trevor. Actually, Trevor, I'm interested to understand the markets that you're working with. I know that you are growing in America and Australia, I think. Emerging markets, where are you looking to target next?
So we're up and running in America, Canada as well. I think there's 2 facilities in Canada. The guys in Australia are selling blocks like hotcakes, which is pretty amazing because they're probably their newest licensee. And then the guys in France are just about to receive their equipment, probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks, to start making EV blocks in France. And then we're looking for more licensees across Europe to fill out the map. So Europe is kind of our next emerging market in terms of building out our network of EV block makers, if you like. And that kind of leads me on to a question for Chris as well. So this system that you've built there seems really kind of scalable. Have you got any aspirations to expand that out to Europe or North America or other locations around the world?
Yeah, so we see a big opportunity in America moving forward, just because the grid in America is not necessarily perfect. But that's potentially for the smaller charge cube. We're having lots of discussions with Europe, a lot of discussions with Australia. because we do have some ties in Australia. So Australia is another one because you've got big open spaces with not much charging infrastructure and also lots of solar. So you can deploy a charge queue, plug it into solar and slot it between locations where people have got long journeys. We may be able to add infrastructure quite quickly into those locations. But it's sort of that thing of I'm trying to stay focused, at least for the next year on the UK before we expand out bigger, because it's very easy to just take on way too much and not be able to keep up.
That's the problem with being an entrepreneur. You see the opportunity everywhere.
You guys need to just meet up and have a good old
Have a
discussion.
coffee.
I've got questions for Enzo Tyres. So we've got one from Robin who's here who says, gee, do your tyres come in all sizes? What is an economic volume of annual tyre demand that justifies this supply? And we also have one from Teresa who says, if we can get them from Asda, can we get them from Costco for smaller independent companies? Double whammy for you.
So where can you get them? You can get them at Halfords, RAC Tires. You can get them at Asda Tires. A number of different retailers are now selling them because they're available in warehouses across the UK, and therefore they can be simply click and buy. We're going to be rolling out our own online sales as well shortly. That's just enzotires.com. You can buy them directly from us. And that's also to basically aid the rollout. I think the question about which tires we do. So we started by focusing on key sizes with the fleets like vans and taxis. We just launched with Uber, of course, the tires for Teslas and other high performance vehicles. Those are kind of trickling into the market. Our target is to have what we say is about 80% of the US fleet, particularly with the expansion to pretty much all the Tesla sizes by the end of this year. So that means by the end of this year, we'll be able to cater to actually 80% of all the tire volume of all of the electric cars in the United States. Now in the UK, it's a bit more mixed. There are a number of different sizes, but it's interesting, for example, that the most common tire for the Tesla S is the same as the Polestar 2. And there's a number of overlaps between the Kias and Hyundais as well. So with a handful of sizes, we can actually occupy quite a big number of the vehicle park that's already out there. And the reason is very, very simple. If you go and buy now an electric car, it'll kind of come with two mostly tire sizes today, maybe three. When you bought a Mercedes E-Class like 10 years ago, you could buy it with 32 different tire sizes. So ultimately, that is no longer the case because there's only one size that's the most efficient one. It's where the bulk of the customers go because they don't want to lose the range. And it's only a handful of people who go for the lower profile tires and therefore are willing to compromise range, and also will cater to those as well because there still is a number of them out there. But the terms of volume, we target the vehicles that are already in the field because we're in the so-called aftermarket. We know a lot of the car makers, and we work with some of the car makers already today, but we're not supplying them today. That'll happen when we have our US factory operational. That's why I'm here in America, is just to look at sites and talk to lots of governors to figure out where we're going to build it. But ultimately, the focus for us is to the vehicles that are on the road today that drive the most. Let's make them great again.
Couldn't agree more. Gee, I've got a question about sustainability. Tires are a major issue.
Yes.
Your tires, when they get to end of life, what happens to them?
Good question. So in the UK, we were partnered with Wastefront, which is building a tire recycling plant in Sunderland, of all places. They're going to be able to cope with a huge volume of tires from the UK market. We'll be directing our tires there for material recycling. We already have shown that we can use a really high concentration of the raw materials in our tires. Like, for example, we have what I believe is the highest concentration of recycled carbon black in our tires than any other company in the world. So that's already been demonstrated, for example, on our taxi rollout today. Ultimately, we have a number of inputs that go into a tire. So we want to switch away from fossil fuel-based feedstocks into more renewable and recycled and bio-based feedstocks. That takes time because we don't want to compromise safety or performance. And ultimately, I think that the way that we talk about sustainability within the industry, some of it has to do with the product itself, what do we put in the product. Some of it is how we make the product. Some of it, what happens with the product when it goes in the field. Like, does it save carbon emissions and energy? Does it reduce the air and microplastic pollution? Some of it, as you touched upon, what happens at the end of life? Well, the fact is, most tires at the end of life are just chucked into a power station or cement kiln and are burnt.
True.
The whole story of a tire is made out of fossil fuels, has a limited life. We burn them at the end of life. That's basically the history of the tire industry today. We have to change that into a circular economy model that incentivizes good to happen. And that's what we're building on.
Outstanding. You've all been outstanding. And I think we've had a great program. Thank you so
What a
much,
session.
Trevor,
Yeah.
G, and Chris. Brilliant guests. And thank you to Paul, Sarah, and Sam, who had to leave us, for sharing your invaluable expertise and passion. But most of all, thanks to you for joining us today and for your engagement and making the EV Cafe such a vibrant community. We appreciate your time, and we hope to leave you feeling inspired and equipped to go and do something. Do something different, do something better. Right, that's it. That's this edition of the EV Cafe webinar done. Stay charged, stay innovative, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next session on August the 20th, all about AI in EV and automotive.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow.
It's going to kill us all, you know. It's going to kill us all.
And don't forget, Mevga. That's all I've got to say to you. Mevga. Until August the 20th. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.